I have another guest.
Round up with just a minute.
So much. It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's start. A lot of words in that.
I think it's us saying that we need the whole of the society for us to be able to get progress. It's not just the sector, it's not just non-profits. To understand that if the time is the pressures that we face, that it's also time for us. I think that's the central theme I'm seeing from this whole NESG summit. The opportunity that this is the chance for us to know that one of us cannot make answers happen to the governors, but that would just not be enough. There must be a revitalization, a reenactment of the social contract of this country.
Look back. High inflation rate, currency issues, not just limited. Cool down one way or other to affect other countries moving on. But my question really is, specifically, are we now looking at maybe between the public and private sector players, or is it between government and what sort of collaboration really do you think can make us achieve that?
And mobilize. Like you will see look back and ask himself, are the macroeconomic principles sound? We know that's the continuous battle. Exchange rate is weakening, growth is not happening as it should be, inflation is still high. So all of the macroeconomic also has to happen, and that collaboration is what we need at this point to ensure that we bring the country to this.
We need to take this break. We'll continue our conversation. We also have live pictures I hear from Ondo, where the campaign for the election is also ongoing. We have live pictures from there, but we'll take a breather and come back with Business Nigeria. The discussion continues here live from Abuja.
I'm Miriam Lunge. I'm a passionate environment advocate
and a published author.
I am the founder of Celebration, a businesswoman, and a fashion icon.
I am a wealth coach and a real estate developer.
I am Amako Arakwe. I'm a corporate commercial lawyer and an entrepreneur.
Barkamu da warhaka. I am Ramatu Shehu Oyibo, an entrepreneur and a business coach.
I am the voice of an average Muslim woman, an hijabite, and a lawyer.
I am a polymath and a serial entrepreneur.
I am Murayo Afolabi Brown, Managing Director, TVC Entertainment. I'm a media consultant, producer, and broadcaster.
The ladies of your view are made of women from different professions, tribes, cultures, and religions.
All right there, thank you so much. You're still watching Business Nigeria live here from Abuja, where we're looking at, of course, discussions in that room and other smaller rooms here. And Mr. Shewonigide is still seated. And now you've already touched on unleashing business dynamism. That's talking about the business and some things that needs to be done. So I think that takes me to the next sub theme, which is building a more secure society. That's very important. We know that investments won't come here if the environment is not safe. What would you say about the efforts of this present administration? Most of my respondents lately are telling me that there seems to be a bit of improvement. We're not where we should be, but what's your observation? What are you hearing?
We have to agree. I mean, give commendation when it's necessary. There's been interest, and I think that comes from coordination. One thing I'm hearing, and I'm saying, is that the Office of the National Security Advisor has become like the reference point to be able to take decisions, every decisions about maintaining security, especially in the Northeast and Northwest corridor. We still have challenges. People are still in great suffering in this country due to activities of terrorists, bandits. And so we have to say, but there's progress. And the other part of that is to unlock the human capital elements. I mean, if we don't get people to see a reason for living, if we don't protect human dignity, whatever we're doing would never be enough. And you would say that insecurity in this country has been rife in the places which has had the weakest human development indicators. In the northern part of the country, in the poorest part of this country, called Northwest and Northeast, we know that that's where human indicators has been weakening over the years. So the government also has to make haste, because if we do this thing, we say, oh, we're doing a federal character, we need to spread the resources. No, we need to optimize resources for equity. If we know that human educational outcomes, health outcomes, nutrition outcomes, environmental outcomes are weak in a certain region of this country, we need to accelerate capital at the end of the day. Because when people judge Nigeria, they don't judge Nigeria by northwest, southwest, south. They look at Nigeria as a whole and just measure up at that level. So it's very extremely important that the government should do that. There is a need of haste. And I know we're creating development commissions in the Northeast development, Northwest, and now we want to create Southwest. All of those commissions have challenges with them. I hope they don't become another layer of bureaucracy. But if that's what's going to accelerate and take the development down to those regions, I think we should do it. But what I would say is that great efforts on the hard part, which is bringing terrorists down and bringing ammunitions, but the soft element of this, and the non-kinetic and all of it has to happen at this point.
Very, very, very importantly, igniting innovation and digital evolution, that is the way to go. Everyone will say that you cannot do anything without innovating and you have to be creative. So what do you also make of this drive? My question really would be, we talk so very much about the positive technology and all of that, but we also know that there are challenges. Cyber crimes, we see banks even trying to update their softwares in recent times, all for security and all of that. So what do you make of technology, the pros and the cons?
It's important, and I think we're going through a difficult time as a nation.
Yes.
And I keep hearing people say, oh, when we remove fuel subsidy, when we get this old liberal exchange rate system, things would improve. And I keep saying that that's not the framework of improving a country. Country improves on the quality of its human capital and opening up the space for those human capital to thrive. And one of the things you can use to accelerate that is by innovation. By innovating for non-oil exports, innovating for technology, innovating for the kind of education system they have, the kind of how you open up your mind to really build things here. But that is the pro, and I think that's what will change Nigeria in the long run when we put entire emphasis on human capital development. But beyond that, it's also innovation technology has its challenges too. Cyber risk, its challenges in there. We also know even fraud. All of that can be heightened within these spaces. We just have to ensure that we're building resilient systems. And I think that's what we are facing with the banks at this point.
Yes.
Maybe ensuring that resilient systems are able to withstand the cyber risk. Definitely, most of the times, this cyber risk, this fraud, and this cybercrime sometimes can be ahead of regulation. Just that we have to make sure that our government is nimble at those environments and able to catch up quickly to be able to build guardrails and ring fence against some of those attacks. So it's not just, we won't be able to fix or face or even bring down a lot of those risks and those challenges. Just we must make sure the government is nimble and open enough to quickly counter. I think it's for the government to do where the Minister of Communications and Innovation and Digital Economy is there. We trust he's doing the best thing. We have Minister of Science and Technology. Government must come all together and put innovation in different sectors of this economy. Agriculture, health, education, and all of that must carry technology and innovation so that we can take us to where we actually need to be.
Interesting stuff. Also promoting strategic collaboration. Anyway, we've talked about that, but key issues now, geopolitical issues that we've talked about it at the start of this conversation, but I'm looking at the impact because it's disrupting value chains. Look at what's been happening, Red Sea, Suez Canal, and all of that. You get what I'm trying to say. So the impact of this on the entire projected growth of by IMF and World Bank, it's something that is worrisome. How do you see all of these issues affecting projected growth?
We can't run away from it. We can't, because we are not an island. And when you look at whatever is happening in the US, with the Fed cutting rates, with its current stock market racing into highs, international or global investment climate is tightened. I mean, we've had a bad record recently of exits. When people had capital held up here for years and for months. And so our risk premium has gone higher. So we must find a way to build back trust and also keenly contest for capital, because we are in an environment where people are going to ask hard questions. At the point in time, oil and gas was our biggest earner for foreign direct investments. Other fields opened up in Africa. Guyana opened up in Americas. So we are, and Saudis and the East have a much more lower cost of production. We lost advantage in that direction. We've got our incentives now for the deep water offshore. We hope that gets a bit of fancy of the IOCs, and we're able to now have platforms that can give us a large production that can take us over for decades and for years. We also have to secure the onshore production environment, because I think going back to oil, that's our quick one. There's no other easy quick one that we have than to just go back to what we are naturally endowed with, optimize that effectively. Because as we know, as geopolitical tensions are rising, we are at the cups of where a singular action can take oil prices to the stratospheric levels. So we have to be able to prepare for that. The last time we had the Russia-Ukraine crisis and there was a spike in oil prices, we could not take adequate advantage of that because our production levels were not optimal. So this is the time for us to make sure that we clean our houses properly, so that if there is another boom in the next run, we can take optimal advantage of that. The other thing is also to position ourselves as the alternate supply chain route. I mean, everybody's worried about China, and we know what's going on between the US and the China dynamics. And you could see corridors like the Vietnams, the Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia. They're circling around that environment to build an alternative supply chain opportunity. Africa is not in that mix because fundamental issues around energy, around ease of doing business, around infrastructure, we have not conquered that. It's also time to also see how do we position ourselves, with a high level of productivity, efficiency, to be and for supply chain and resilience. I mean, nobody wants to look at a single region of the country. What if we say good in Vietnam and China invades Vietnam tomorrow, and the same challenges continue to happen? So in some sort of way, Africa, Nigeria, the centerpiece of that was look at what can make us a supply chain opportunity. And we have 200 million people.
Yes,
we speak English. We're not even far from the market, either it's in Europe or it's in the US. So, I mean, it's for us to just sit back and reflect about how do we position ourselves for such opportunities, because they are there and they will continue to be there.
True, they are there. Almost finally, very interesting conversations, always as usual. Nigeria's business environment must attract this needed investment. I know that payback, a lot has been happening around that space, but investors and businessmen having their reservations about coming to invest in Nigeria. So I don't know if you would also like to speak to that fact, that how well are we doing with that? How attractive is Nigeria's economy for investment?
It's great. I mean, the major issue I felt in recent time has been that exit. Because for every investor, the biggest thing in your mind from the first day is the exit. How do I get out of here?
Yes.
No matter how much returns I have, if I cannot plow it out, then I have a big problem. And so, from this current FX regime we have, it's a bittersweet situation. It's liberal, means you can approach the market and you can be able to repatriate your fund. It's also challenging because it's also highly unstable. The currency must have a degree of stability over at least some certain level of prolonged period. You might have swings, but those will be external factors that you might not be able to control. But there has to be a time where we start smoothing things out at this point. And I think that's something you worry. You don't want to exit tree at 1,300, 1,200. No matter how much edge you're building, you're trying to exit at 1,700 or 2,000 naira to $1. Those are the kind of dynamics that play. The other things we also have to look is capital is keenly contested for. So in some sort of way, we must clean our houses. I mean, in terms of what does our port infrastructure still look like? Is that optimized for exports? Are we supposed to now start building a single windows plan for us to make sure that this corridor, I mean, in Côte d'Ivoire, they did it. They took a single city and said, this city is going to be our city for our export gateway. And something that we can also come back and reflect, being deliberate, to say, this is how we want to, I mean, it is San Pedro or something, this is how we are going to. So we have to also be more deliberate in some sort of way, because there is no way around us optimizing export out of it. Either it's oil or non-oil. That's the only way we get our currency stable from a very cheap perspective. If we borrow money, it's too expensive. If we bring investors in, if we think it's FPIs, it might be great for a short run, but when they want to exit, we know how challenging that would still be. So for me, I think let's optimize our resources and let's be able to put them at the competitive level.
Now that inflation seems not to be adhering to the policies of the Apex Bank one way or the other, many would say, some say it's a mixed bag, though, because there was a 2 months of decline before we now saw this increase. But many said that was also expected considering the price of fuel and all of that. Do you still think that there will be that ripple impact of this hike? We've seen like 2-3 hikes in like 2 months. Speak to the deregulation issue and also speak to the impact on inflation.
I don't think hikes are working. I'm not being.
But sorry to interject you. Does it look like we've totally deregulated? That's what it looks like.
I think right now you can look at the fuel economy and see we have deregulated. Yeah. Because since that signal came from the federal government and they explained to IPMA that go and have a conversation with Dangote. We don't want to be in your. We don't want to be in your midst.
That means a lot.
That means I think that's a final signal to everybody that, because by the time when we're still contemplating that NNPC will be an off-taker, all of that is still saying there's a middleman in between who's going to regulate prices. But since they say go meet with Ipman and talk to the Dangote and find a middle ground, I think for me that creates a huge signal that we are in a food deregulated market. It's a challenging one for Nigeria because the social element of all of that is huge. I think the way CBN is counteracting that, I don't think is the answer. And I think CBN is doing what it can. Let's be honest. It's not the federal government of Nigeria. It's not the resource authorities, which means it's not NNPC, it's not FIRS. It's not also the fiscal authority. It's not customs. It's not the Minister of Finance. And so whatever is happening at the fiscal level, it has to match what is happening at the monetary level. But I think it has raised the rates to a point that it's like you're trying, when you have this Moore's law, you're trying to cram semiconductors into a chip. It got to a point, the chip started eating up and it can no longer bear the burden anymore. We have got to a point where we have raised the temperature level to a particular point. I don't think there are further answers beyond what we have done. What we need to do is to look at where are the sources of inflation. The exchange rate has to be smoothened out. Somehow the CBN has to step in there.
Yes.
Because without the exchange rates not being smoothened out, the price of fuel will keep rising. The second thing that has to happen, is also the issue of food. Food inflation is a core element in this basket. How is the CBN working with the Ministry of Agriculture, with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that food prices go on a slump? A chunk of that basket of the CPI is food. So if we don't able to tackle the food inflation, we are only just deceiving ourselves. So I don't think the CBN should just sit back and say, we keep raising rates and keep raising rates, and we keep raising T-bill rates, and we keep raising bond rates, and that will keep mopping Naira in the economy. No. Because we are also dealing with a trust issue at some point. Yeah. Nigerians have lost, to some extent, trust in the currency as a store of value. So if you keep doing all of that, you might not get the answers that you want.
Yes, true. Let's wrap up this conversation back again to technology. We talked about how sweet, how interesting and all of that, but there are broadband challenges. We still have infrastructure challenges. We have financing issues here. How many of these opportunities in that space are Nigerians even getting to take advantage of?
It's still a long haul for us. I don't think we're there yet when we look at
technology. Trying?
We're trying, and I think the federal government, I read the news yesterday, the federal government wants to commit $2 billion to lay thousands of fiber optics.
Yeah, I think I heard that too.
So, I mean, that's a step forward. I know the World Bank is also heavily involved in it to be able to, because, I mean, access to broadband, it's proven that it would give you a shift in your GDP growth. So if we take advantage of that and be able to do it, we should. Let's take broadband to schools. Let's take broadband to hospitals. Let's take broadband to market. Let's take broadband to primary healthcare centers. Let's take broadband everywhere, to homes, and take it at a cheaper level. And I think that has an opportunity to shift our GDP. We are in an information environment. And I know that the next growth wave coming from this whole machine learning, artificial intelligence, we cannot afford not to take full advantage of those opportunities. So it's also very important that we can't do those things with weak broadband. So it's very important that we take that forward.
So finally, the closing ceremony, of course, is about to start. Now, finally, at the NESG, let's look at some takeouts for you. I know you've attended a session or two today. What will be some of your takeouts this year's?
Collaboration has to happen, and we have to put citizens and solidarity at the center of it. A lot of people, with all of things you've heard around the SDGs, around energy, around power, it's all just come about how do we come together, and how does government understand its role in policy, how does it become agile, how does it become quick enough to respond to market dynamics, how does the society also have a whole idea, a whole strategy. So we're not just spending money, we're spending money targeted towards purpose. So I think that collaboration and that synergy is what is the big point here. As a lot of people mentioned here, it's not at the best of times for the Nigerians.
Exactly.
There's a lot of haste required. We need, and like someone, like I heard from the final panel, the closing panel, we need speed. We need to move fast because urgency is critical at this point. Without speed, without urgency, we might not be able to achieve anything. We need scale.
World Bank says we must stay the course.
Yeah.
Did you read that?
I read that. We must stay. When we say we must stay the course, some dynamics have to shift. Like I mentioned, if the exchange rate, if the Federal Reserve stays the course, World Bank give us $10 billion. Let's find some form of, while we also figure out our resource capabilities.
Let's use that to
be able to hold the ground. Because if we want to stay the course, we can't stay the course with currency 17, 18, 19, 2000. We can't stay the course that way. So extremely important that we understand that we need speed. We need skill. We can't do things at small level. We can't do one state, two state. We need skill. And we need scope. We need to bring everybody in to be able to achieve the kind of impact that we want.
Solution Onubinde, I must thank you so much, co-founder, director, Budget Nigeria. It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure with you too.
Thank you so
always
much.
And always.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time always. Well, you've heard it live from Transcorp Hilton here, where discussions, like I said earlier, are ongoing. The closing session is on at the moment, and the Minister of Budget and National Planning is here in person. That's Senator Atiku Bagudu. Yeah, he's here in person to of course, close the ceremony, get the communique, and of course, everything will be reeled out to him. Top issues, like I said at the start of this event on Monday, the issues are being addressed all around technology, about collaboration, about building a resilient economy, business dynamism. All of this were raised at this 3-day gathering put together by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. So it's almost a wrap up here for the year 2024, and of course the next one will be 2025, but we'll still be in Abuja bringing you up to speed with the fallout of discussions at this event. So we'll be live from the studio from tomorrow to bring you up to speed with Business Nigeria, having more interviews around resolutions and discussions at the NES 30. Thank you